Hey everyone, talking about the midpoint formula today. Yesterday we talked about the distance formula, and the distance formula being used to find the distance between 2 points. And today we want to find the midpoint, or the middle point between 2 points. First thing I want to do is just simply talk about average, because if you think about average, it should help you think about what the midpoint formula is. Again, midpoint stands for middle point. Just think of average. If I wanted to find the average between 2 and the number 6, and I wanted to find the average between those two, what would you do? Well, you'd go 2 plus 6 and divide by 2, right? And that would give you 8 over 2, which is 4. So 4 would be in the middle of 6 and 2. And I think that's a pretty basic problem. You can hopefully understand that. But that's essentially what you're doing today. You're finding the average, or the middle, of 2 points. Now, before we jump into actual midpoint problems, I want to do some quick review of simplest radical form. This is tough for students, and I gave you 3 tough problems here to try, and I'm going to go through these with you real quick, okay? So, when you have to simplify in radical form, yesterday we talked about you can do it one of 2 ways. You can use the factor tree form, or you can pull out the largest perfect square. Perfect squares are like 4 and 9 and 16 and 25. Those are, the list goes on, but those are your perfect squares. All right, so number 1. What I like to do is I like to do largest perfect squares. So this n squared is going to stay out in front. I'm going to put all my perfect squares under this square root, and I'm going to put all my leftovers, what I call leftovers, over here. So when I look at 48, I know that 16 goes into 48, and 16 times 3 makes 48. 16 is a perfect square because 4 times 4 makes 16. When you look at your letters, you're looking for even exponents. So n to the 4th is even. I can put that there. Now, m to the 3rd is odd. I can only put even exponents on the left-hand side. So all you do is subtract 1 to get to the next lowest even number. And since you put 2 m's in this spot, you need to put that leftover m there. And now what you're going to do is you're going to take the square root of those terms underneath the square root symbol. So you still have the n squared. Square root of 16 is 4. What times what gives you n to the 4th, or what's the square root of n to the 4th? N squared. What times what gives you m squared, or what's the square root of m squared? Just plain old m. And your leftovers stay as leftovers. Okay? Now there's really a time sign between all of these terms. So you're just going to times everything together. 4 n to the 4th, if you have 2 n's here and 2 n's there, that's 4 of them, m square root of 3m. Okay? Number 2, you can break these down separately. So I know that 18 breaks down into 9 and 2. I know 45 breaks down into 9 and 5. Right? 9 times 2, 18. 9 times 5, 45. What's the square root of 9? It's 3. So 3 times 3 square root of 2 times 3 radical 5. I'm going to have 9 radical 2 times 3 radical 5. And then I take the numbers outside. So 9 times 3 is 27. And the square root of 2 times the square root of 5 is the square root of 10. Now, you did this in Algebra 1. You may not remember, but that's why we're doing this. This is a quick review. Now, you could have multiplied 18 times 45 in step 1 and got like 3 square root 810. I think 18 times 45 is 810, but that is a huge number to break down. So you can do it that way. I chose not to. I chose to break them down separately. Now over here, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm actually going to push everything together. So I'm going to have 6a, and I got the 6a from 2a times 3. And then I'm going to times together everything that's underneath the square root symbols. So 12 times 4 is 48. A5 and A3 make A8, right? When you multiply exponents together, you add them. And then I'm going to break down this. So I know 16 and 3. 16 times 3 is 48. We just did a one with 48 in it over here. A8, since that's even, you bring all the even ones over. There's no leftovers. 6a is still out in front. And then you take the square root of 16a to the 8th, so 6a, 4a4, square root of 3, so 24a5 square root of 3. Okay? Now, those are difficult, and that may not make perfect sense to you, but that's why when you come to class, you can ask some questions. Okay, so now we're going to get into the midpoint formula problems. Now, I have this map here to try to put it in play for you. So here we go. This is going to be, I'm going to try to zoom this in for you. And I'll adjust it. Apologize here. There we go. So this is a map of London, or a part of London. London is a massive city. If you've ever been there, you know that. I've been there once. And you can see the coordinate plane placed over it. So this is kind of a real-world application of how to find the midpoint. So let's do a quick example here. Let's say, all right, for example, that you are at the London Zoo, which is right up here. Now that point is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that 5? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so -5. So the zoo is -5, comma. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the zoo's point is -5 and 7. The other point, let's say, what's popular in London? There's a lot of stuff in London that's popular. Buckingham Palace. Let's do London Bridge. It's actually called the Tower Bridge, which is right here. A lot of people think it's called London Bridge. It's called the Tower of London, or the Tower Bridge. And that point is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and down 1. Okay? If you want to, the quickest way to find the midpoint, so here's the zoo, here is the Tower Bridge. Let's say you went with some friends, and some of you are at the Tower Bridge looking at London Bridge, and some of you are over at the zoo, you like animals, and you say, hey, let's meet for lunch at the halfway point in between us, okay, so that both of us are walking or taking the underground halfway. The easiest way to do this when you have a map and a coordinate plane is you find the slope of the line, of the straight line that connects these two. So let's just find the slope of this would-be line that would be here. So I'm going to just count. So I'm going to count Tower Bridges here. So I'm going to come over here so I can get it more accurate. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? So the slope of this line from the zoo to the bridge is up 8. And then counting left and right. So I'm going to move up. So here's the bridge. I'm going to see how many units to the left it is to get to the zoo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I went left 12. Now when you go left, right, that's a negative. So here's the really quick and easy way to find the midpoint. If it's on a coordinate plane on a map like this, all you do is take your slope and cut it in half. Okay? So that would be your midpoint, would be right here. You went up 8, so you would just go up 4, and to the left 12. Okay? So if you go from this point and just go up 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go to the left. Sorry, I put 12 here. That should be a 6 because I cut 12 in half, right? Cut 8 in half, got 4. Cut -12 in half, get -6. So again, up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go to the left 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right here is the middle point between, and again, you can see that it works out pretty well between those two. So you could meet in Bloomsbury for lunch if you wanted to, or off Bloomsbury Road. All right, that's the quickest way, and then you would just figure out what that point is. It should be, let's see, it's going to be to the right, up 1, almost close to 1, 3. Okay, now I'm going to show you an algebraic way to find the midpoint on the backhand side with the midpoint formula. Okay, so on these, oops, that's way out of focus there. Not even close. I'm going to show you how to find the midpoint with a formula. And the midpoint formula is, remember, it's just average. So here's how you find the midpoint. M equals x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. The thing you need to remember about the midpoint formula is that your midpoint is a point. So you're not going to get like the midpoint equals 7 or the midpoint equals 4. It's going to be the midpoint as a point, like 2 comma 5 or whatever. So on number 1, I always label. So this is my x1, y1, x2, y2. All you're going to do is add your x's together. So 2 plus 4 over 2. So 2 plus 4 is 6. 6 over 2 is 3. So 3 comma. Take your y's. 3 plus a negative 1 over 2. 3 plus a negative 1 is 2. 2 over 2 is 1. The midpoint is 3, 1. Now let's show that on the graph. Your first point was 2, 3. 2, 1, 2, 3. The second point was 4, negative 1, which is right here. So what I asked you to do was find the midpoint or the middle point between those two, and I told you we just found it to be 3, 1. We'll check it. 3, up 1, boom, right there. There's your midpoint right in the middle. All right? That is the quickest and easiest way to find your midpoint. In common sense terms, in layman's terms, you just add your 2 x coordinates, divide by 2, add your 2 y coordinates, divide by 2, and you'll get your x coordinate and you'll get your y coordinate. Okay? Now problem number 2 is a little bit different. This is a challenging question. So it says segment AB has an endpoint at 0, 9. So let's go up to 0, 9. There's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so there's point A. And they're telling you the midpoint is 4, negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, to give you a visual, here's A. There's the midpoint M. So you know somewhere down in here is the point that we want. They're asking you, where is B located? M's the midpoint. You got to try to find this equation down here. Now, I'm going to actually use the midpoint formula. I'm going to zoom out just a touch here. Okay? Now, when you know what the midpoint is, 4 comma 5, I'm going to actually plug in my 4 and negative 5 for this M, but I'm going to do it 2 separate times. Watch how this works. I'm going to plug in my 4. So 4, my midpoint, which I know what it is, it's 4, part of it's 4, equals, I know what one of my x values is, it's 0. I'm trying to find the other x value of point B. So all I'm doing is taking M, plugging in my 4 or my 0 for this x. I'm trying to find this x divided by 2. You can see that right here. And now you just solve for x. Times 4 by 2 and get 8. 0 plus x is just x, so x equals 8. So right now, my midpoint coordinate is 8 comma something. Now I need to find my y. I'm going to just repeat the process, but now using this negative 5, plugging it in for the midpoint. So it looks like this. Negative 5 equals, you know what one of your y coordinates is. It's 9. So equals 9 plus y, because you're trying to find your other y coordinate, divided by 2. Times 5 by 2, you get negative 10. Subtract 9 from both sides, you get negative 19 equals y. So your other coordinate is 8, negative 19. Just double check it. Here's 8, there's 6, 7, 8, and down 19. Now obviously, I can't go 19, but it's going to be somewhere down in the area that I was thinking it would be in. Okay? So that's midpoint. I just gave you one example of each, so if you want to rewind it and listen or watch, you're going to have to do problems on a quiz like problems 1 and problems 2 where you have to find the midpoint and or find the other missing endpoint when given a midpoint. Okay? If you have questions, talk about it in class when you get back, and hopefully you have some success on your assignment.